Hello and welcome to Ray of Light, a podcast all about reading, writing and happiness with me, Eleanor Ray. I write uplifting book club fiction about finding light in dark times and the strength in vulnerability. Today, I'm absolutely honoured to be joined by the magnificent Heidi Swain, a Sunday Times best-selling author who has written more than 20 wonderful novels celebrating friendship, community, love, and finding joy in everyday life. Heidi, welcome. It is absolutely wonderful to have you on Ray of Light with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. And that's the most gorgeous intro. Just keep saying things like that, please. That's fabulous.
Great. I wanted to begin by saying how nice a change it is to have fellow author of uplifting fiction with me today. We've had some wonderful guests on the show so far: dystopian, crime, historicals, tragic love, psychological thrillers. So I'm really looking forward to talking about books which are steeped in hope. And you write such happy novels about, as we said, kindness, community, and of course, romance. So I'd love to start by asking you to tell us about your new novel, All Wrapped Up, which I read over half term and I absolutely adored. Please tell us more.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm delighted you enjoyed it. So All Wrapped Up is a Wimbridge book. I've got quite a few books in that series now, too many to remember off the top of my head. And they've all either been a summer book or a Christmas book. And last year, my editor asked if I would consider writing something for the autumn market. And the setting of Wimbridge is in the East Anglian Fens, which is the area where I grew up. And there are lots of flat fields there. And in the autumn, of course, they are full of pumpkins. So I knew that that was going to be the perfect place for this book. And All Wrapped Up centres around the main character of Clemmy, who is a very, very young widow. And she's not local to Wimbridge. She's moved to Wimbridge with a view to processing her grief in the way that works best for her. She was living in the town that she grew up in before, where she was married with her husband. And she decided that there were too many painful memories there. Her parents were trying to encourage her to grieve one way. She had a very set way about what she wanted to do. And so she moves to Wimbridge to renovate a cottage. And she's been renovating the cottage for 18 months. She's just come to the end of that. And that's where the book begins, literally on the day she's pretty much finished. And there's a knock on the door from Wimbridge local, Lizzie Dixon. And it's all about how Clemmy is encouraged to take part in a community event and how she continues to heal her heart as she becomes more of a Wimbridge local.
Yes, I love it. And what I like about your books is there's darkness there, or something terrible has happened to her, but you don't focus in on that aspect of it. That's something that's happened in the past, which is something I often do in my books as well, because it's not so much about the darkness, it's about the recovery. It's about that healing journey. And I think that's what you do so beautifully in All Wrapped Up, because it's about Clemmy's healing journey. And she has a little bit of help from friends and also a love interest along the way. Can you tell me a little bit about Ash the vet?
So in terms of what you've just saying about the healing journey, I had to really think carefully about how long it was since this tragedy has happened in Clemmy's life, because I thought if I put her too close to this tragedy, she won't be ready to do the thing that I want this book to be about, which is why I'd given her 18 months of pretty much isolation, really. Yeah. But that's just what she needed. She's just tentatively thinking about stepping back into the world when Lizzie shoves her into it, if you like. And so we've got Ash. He's also a relative newcomer to Wimbridge. He's joined the veterinary practice, the local vets, which is run by a guy called Will, who has been a main character in a previous book. So it was lovely to bring Will back. And Ash is just, well, he's the perfect guy, isn't he? He's absolutely wonderful. He's kind, he's compassionate. His level of understanding with what Clemmy is going through is amazing. And given the trauma that she'd already experienced in her life, I didn't really want to, there was going to be no game playing here. There was going to be no love triangle, nothing like that. I just wanted Ash to be the best guy that he could possibly be for her. And of course, along with him comes Pixie, the rescue dog, who is also on a healing journey.
Oh, when Pixie went and crawled onto Clemmy's lap and curls up, that was just such a perfect moment. Loved it. Loved it. And we both write uplifting books. What made you decide to write these books full of hope and joy? What is it about that that really appealed to you?
I think the thing for me was that these are the sorts of books that I love to read. And if you are going to write a book or 21 books, you need to love what you're writing. Otherwise, you're not going to get past chapter 3, chapter 4. You've really got to be invested in it. And I knew that I could be invested in these love stories because it's not just about the two main characters. You've got the community there. You've got lots of family. You've got lots of friendships. You've got beautiful settings. They were books that I would want to read. That's what encouraged me to write them.
Yeah, I feel the same. I love crime books and I love books that have some darkness to them. But most of the time, what I want to read is something that makes me feel better. I want to feel better at the end of a book than I did before I started reading it. And I can be sad in the middle. That's okay. I think you can acknowledge the pain and the suffering that is a part of life. But at the end, I want to be feeling happier.
Yeah, happy tears. That's what we want at the end. Happy tears. We want to be uplifted, don't we? The world's quite a dark place at the moment. And these are the sort of books that I like to immerse myself in when I'm reading. And so these are the lovely worlds that I've tried to create for my readers.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the world building that you do so that you kind of, you meet a character and when the book's over, they're not gone forever. They come back as a minor character in another book. I think that's so skillfully done. It must be something that's really fun to write as well.
I do really enjoy doing that. And the best thing to do is, because I've got I write standalones as well, but I've got 3 main series. And what I love to do is to pull a character out of the setting that we're used to seeing them in and actually putting them in a different setting. That's really fun. So, for example, in one of the Christmas books, Underneath the Christmas Tree, which is set in Weymouth at the seaside at a Christmas tree plantation, there's a very, very brief scene there with a character from Wimbridge. She's popped in, she's gone to do some Christmas shopping there. And readers absolutely love spotting things like that. They really, really appreciate that. And it kind of also shows how close those 3 settings are. So you've got Wimbridge in the Fens, Weymouth at the seaside, and Nightingale Square in Norwich. So it's not beyond the bounds that these people, they might bump into each other or they might go to similar places. So I enjoyed that. That is fun.
Fun to read and it's fun to write as well. I haven't done that with my books, but I'd love to one day because when you finish a book, you start to miss the characters a little bit and you wonder what happens to them next. And maybe like their stories told, maybe there's not another full book about them, but just to see them pop into other characters' lives and see how they've grown as a result of what happened to them in their book would be a really fun thing to do. You must love doing it.
I do. Yeah, I really enjoy that. And readers are always asking, when we go back, can you just let us know what's happening with so-and-so? They really enjoy that. The only thing that I struggle with actually are a couple of the dogs, because I don't have a dog myself. I absolutely adore dogs, but I'm on my own. I couldn't commit to having a dog. So I write about all the different breeds that I really, really adore. And there are a couple of dogs in there who I'm really stretching it with the age that they are. And it's going to break my heart to go back to a couple of places and these dogs not be there. So, the people are fine. The people are okay. They're all fit and healthy and well, but how realistic is it to keep these dogs on into their dotage? That's the tricky part.
And you write in real time because you do 2 books a year. Does time pass in the same way as it does in the real world? Or is it a kind of more Narnia-like thing where it's a bit more fluid?
No, time passes as it does in the real world.
Okay.
It's complicated enough writing 2 books a year.
Tell me about it. Brilliant. Now, you've mentioned 21 published books, really inspiring writing career, many Sunday Times bestsellers, awards from the RNA, a host of eager fans. Can you tell us a little bit about how it all began? What made you first decide to write a novel? And tell us a little bit about your path to publication.
Well, I'd always written. Always.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a really small child, loved writing down stories. And I always knew that I wanted writing to be part of my life. Ideally, I wanted to be a published author. That was the bottom line of it. But I think, like lots of other people, it feels a little bit out of reach. How do you make it happen? What do you need to do? But I reached the age where I'd got a milestone birthday coming, and I thought, if I don't have a go at writing a novel, I'd been writing short stories, I'd done some creative writing courses, but everything was really short. I thought, if I don't have a go soon, I'm going to leave it so late. I'm not going to have time to learn my craft, let alone do anything with it. So that was the thing that kind of kicked off the desire to write a full-length novel. So I wrote one, went in the box under the bed, like so many other people will say. And then I'd really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process and I wanted to see if I could improve on that. I wrote another one and I joined the RNA New Writers Scheme, and the book went into amazing scheme, went in, came back with a report, did a bit of tweaking, and then submitted it to the Simon and Schuster Books in the City one day opportunity, where they open their inbox in July for just 24 hours and you can submit an unsolicited manuscript. And if you're very lucky, you will get the email come back to you saying, we want to meet you. We like this book. And that's exactly how it happened. It was, once I decided to do it, it actually happened all quite fast. I think that the tricky bit is having the confidence to do it. And I think that's a hurdle that stops a lot of people, because I know it stopped me for many, many years. I was worried about getting it wrong. But then when you kind of tell yourself, look, you're writing this and nobody else in the world has to see it, just, you're doing it for yourself, that kind of gives you the impetus and the courage to have a go.
And I think that's really important, because it seems insurmountable in a way, writing a novel and getting it published. But when you break it down into its individual stages and try and enjoy each of that. So one thing that I've learned through my writing journey is it's not just about writing to be published. It's about writing to really enjoy what you're doing, really enjoy writing. And if it gets published, that's a brilliant bonus. And if it doesn't, you've done writing, which you love, and maybe you'll get to a finished book, which is an amazing achievement in itself.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
And with your career, was there a moment along the way where things really shifted for you? Was there a breakthrough book or a milestone that stands out?
When Sleigh Rides and Silver Bells came out, which was the second Christmas title I'd written, and it was the first book set at Winthorpe Hall, which readers have really taken to their hearts. That felt, for me personally, that felt quite like that was a big moment when it came out, because it did so well in the Sunday Times. And I kind of actually thought, maybe I do know what I'm doing here. Perhaps things are going in the right direction. Because we don't always think that, do we? I was having this conversation very recently. I'm writing book 22 at the moment, and it's really hard. It's harder than anything I've done before. And I think people assume that if you're writing in one genre and you are writing, me, for example, writing somewhere with a gorgeous setting and a lovely community, wonderful friendships, family, and a romance, people kind of think that it's a bit of a trick to it. And the more you do, the easier it gets. You can just sit here and trot them out every 6 months and the end, and that's it. That's not it at all. It gets so much harder. Sorry, guys, for anybody who's right at the beginning of their career. But it really, this is my experience, it doesn't get any easier, because you constantly want to offer something new and something fresh and something exciting. You're struggling over character names when you're 21 books in, because, all those lovely names that you had lists of at the beginning of your career, you've used those up. And also, the most obvious thing, you want the newest book to be better than your last. You always want to improve. And there's a lot of pressure there.
That's been a theme with this podcast as well. I've spoken to a number of writers, Heather Critchlow and Jackie Kabler too, who said each time they sit down to write a book, even though they've written many, many books before, they still think, I can't do it this time.
There is always that moment. And I think it comes at different times as well. Because, when I look at the books that I've had published this year, Best Summer Ever and All Wrapped Up, they are probably two of the books that I've enjoyed writing the most. Absolutely loved them. They were hard in their own way. Writing an autumn book, I hadn't written an autumn book before, so you've got all those feelings of, is this going to work? Are people going to like it? So a different set of challenges there. But with the book that I'm writing at the moment, it's like everything that I've learned has just kind of gone out the window, and it feels very, very fresh, I guess, in a way. There are lots of challenges.
You have a very loyal readership who eagerly await each new book. How does it feel? And does it change how you approach your writing at all?
It's exciting, but again, that is another pressure, because you want to give them something else that they will enjoy. Lots of people are now saying to me, does that mean you're going to write a summer book, an autumn book, and a Christmas book? No. I know that you would love me to be able to put a book out for every season, and it's the biggest compliment that you want to read what I've put out every season, but that's impossible. So I don't know if having a loyal readership makes me change the way I write, but I am thinking about them as I write. I'm thinking about what they like and perhaps what they wouldn't like. So I think you are influenced by that. But then I did have a library event earlier in the year where somebody asked the question that would I ever write a book about a main character who was having an affair with somebody's husband? And I thought, you're perhaps the one reader who might find that okay, but nobody else would. So that was a definite no. No, I don't think I'll be writing that one. I couldn't have a lot of sympathy for that person, and I
Yes.
don't think I could write a book about that particular subject.
Fair. Do you have a favourite of your own books? Which one?
At the moment, and it's going to be really, really obvious, I just absolutely adore All Wrapped Up. Whether it's because it's the most recent, and I have felt like that about books in the past because they've only just come out. But it was really lovely to go back to somewhere familiar, but at a different time of year. And knowing that Wimbridge would lend itself so beautifully to autumn, I think I did it justice. I think I did the town good.
You did. It was wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Now, moving on to your creative process a little bit more and the inspiration. You've written a lot of books. Which part of the process do you enjoy the most? Where do you find the most happiness from writing?
Oh, gosh, there's a few actually. I do enjoy the planning. That's when I get out I have an A4 notepad and a pencil. And for a few weeks, I'll be scribbling down every idea, no matter how off the wall. I just scribble everything down onto this notepad in the hope that once the few weeks are up, I will have something that I can start to form into something of a plan. So I enjoy that. I enjoy the excitement and the prospect of a new book and a new story to tell. And then once it's been approved, I enjoy the first draft because you're not worrying about the finessing at that point. You've thrown that lump of clay onto the potter's wheel and you are creating a shape. It won't be the shape that it ends up as, but your editor hasn't seen it, your agent hasn't seen it, and you can just throw everything at it. At that point, it is for your eyes only. So I really enjoy that part too. So the planning and the first draft, I love that. And then reading the proof pages is also nice because your work is done. You're at the very last bit that you can possibly do with it. So most of the process I enjoy.
It sounds to me like the answer to my next question is apparent. What's the hardest part?
That's the editing. How do you get through it? Tears? No sleep? I think with the editing part, I mean, sometimes a book comes back and it's just, this needs such a light touch, and it's done in a twinkling. That's joyous. The book that I'm working on at the moment, there were things that I knew were going to come up but we'd reached the first draft deadline. So I knew that I was going to have to sort them out. And my editor and agent agreed. They came up with the same things that I had flagged up. And so I've been 3 weeks now and I've just literally had to cancel all plans. I hope you can't see the bags. I've been very careful with the lighting this morning. So, but you just have to throw yourself into it. And I think for me personally, if I can shut down a bit, if I'm not aware of what's going on outside the house, I just need to be totally focused on it. And that's the thing. That's how I get through it. I keep it constantly in my head. Power through.
Well, that's interesting. We should swap because I find reading page proofs is my least favourite part because that's so for anyone who doesn't know, just before your book goes out, they send you it all laid out exactly as it's going to be. And that's your last chance to read through and make any little changes and corrections. And that's when I always think, oh no, this is my chance. I'm going to miss something awful. I get really anxious when I do that. That's my least favourite. And I actually like the stage before. I enjoy the editing because for me, I write quite a rough first draft. And then editing is where you kind of add all the little bits of magic and sparkle and the things that really kind of bring it to life. And then you've got a book, you've got something to work with. So I find it a little bit easier than when you start at the beginning and you have the blank page and you don't know where things are going to head. I find those two things give me anxiety. Now, talking about reading, which we love to do on Ray of Light, is there a book other than your own that you've read recently that you would recommend? Maybe something that hasn't had the attention it might deserve.
Oh gosh, I have been reading quite a lot of proofs recently.
Okay, yep.
So they haven't had the attention they deserve yet, but they will do when they come out. I have most recently read the new Page Tunes book that's coming out next year, Don't Fall in Love with Me. It was absolutely gorgeous. I love Page's books. They are these huge, sweeping love stories. And lots of this book takes place in Italy in the height of the summer. And that's gorgeous. Absolutely love that. Really, really enjoyed it.
We'll look forward to the new Page Tune. That sounds
It's
exciting.
beautiful. I would definitely get ordering that. Yeah. Yeah, you'll love it.
I love a big sweeping romance. And you write romance very beautifully as well. What do you think the secret is to a good fictional romance?
We don't want it to be straightforward. There needs to be problems. There needs to be obstacles as to why these two people can't be together. We always need that. We know if we're reading the sort of book that I write that it's all going to come good in the end.
Yes.
So I think that kind of gives you the opportunity to make these obstacles really quite grim as they're going along, because you know it's all going to come good at the end. You don't want it to be too linear. You don't want them to meet, fall in love, and that's the end. They've got to have problems along the way.
It's interesting how you've done it with Ash and Clemmy, as we were saying earlier. Because of her fragile state, you haven't thrown in the kind of typical things. It comes from her and her recovery rather than him doing anything. Could be.
I don't think Ash actually puts a foot wrong, really, does he?
No.
He's wonderful. And yes, because of all the baggage that Clemmy has got and all the things that if she decides to embark on this new relationship, all of the trauma that she's taking into that with her, I was like, oh, love, no, you've had enough. You've had enough. So, there are problems in there. So you've got things that are going on in Clemmy's head. She's obviously carrying a lot of guilt that she's developing feelings for this guy. So you've got all that kind of thing. And then we had some other problems that came up because there's the Autumn Fair, the festival that's happening in Wimbridge. So we had a couple of problems with that and the problems with another character, but not necessarily problems between Clemmy and Ash. She's been through enough, bless her. Yeah.
Has. And what I liked about that romance, and this is something that I do a little bit in my books, is my books aren't romances, but there's normally a romantic subplot because it's about one character, my main character, and their journey to recovery. And I think accepting the right romance into your life is a kind of a symptom of recovery, a way of showing what's happened. And I think you do that with Ash and Clemmy as well. It's really her, and her accepting him is because she's kind of healing in her own way.
Yeah, and that was a theme that I wanted to really emphasize in the book. With the best will in the world, if you were on a healing journey because of anything that's happened to you in your life, with the best will in the world, you will have friends and family who want to fix you. They want to make you better.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly understandable. But actually, quite often, I think the best thing to do is to just give that person space, be there for them. But if someone's pouring out their heart to you, they're not necessarily looking for you to come up with a dozen strategies to help them through it. They just want to know that you're there to hear them. So with Clemmy moving away, she still had her family. She still had her mum and dad who were wonderfully supportive, but they just weren't in her pocket. And so she was able to do what she needed to do in the amount of time that she needed to take. And I kind of wanted to put that message across, just to maybe make people think either perhaps if they've got a friend going through something, how they could be a better friend, or if someone was going through something themselves, that they should have faith in their journey, to trust their own process. I think that's really important. Do it your way, because your way will be the right way for you.
Absolutely. Now, aside from writing, where do you find happiness in everyday life? What's your own ray of light, I suppose?
I think the most important thing for me is my daily commute. So obviously when you're an author, if you write at home, all you have to do really is make a cup of tea and go and sit in another room, isn't it? You don't have a commute as such. So I'm really all for green things growing. I love green spaces. I love the seasons. I'm a witch at heart. I'm very focused on the wheel of the year. So for me, my happy place is my daily commute. I go for a walk for an hour every morning. If it's absolutely lashing with rain or blowing a gale, then no, I'm not gonna force myself out there. I'm not gonna see anything lovely in that. But that's my happy place, and that makes me feel like I've had some movement. That's really important. So it's all that kind of thing that makes me happy.
Yeah. And I imagine that kind of thing must help you when you write about the seasons as well, because you're very attuned to what's going on with the world and with the kind of the earth around you and the trees. So does it help you when you write about autumn or winter or
It
summer?
really does. Yeah, I think it helps me with all the seasons, actually. And I think as well, that was probably why I wanted to put Clemmie's story in this book, because autumn, is all about letting go. It's all about that's the change of the season, letting go and sowing the seeds for what comes next. That, it couldn't have been a more perfect time or setting for Clemmie's particular journey. I felt that was really important. And it was also why I wanted to bring in Molly. We couldn't bring in Winthrop Hall. That this book was going to be so big with so many characters. If we then also brought in the clan from Winthorpe, we decided not to actually go and visit the hall, which was a hard decision to make. But Molly the White Witch, who lives in the cottage in the woods there, she played her part. She helped. She helped with some healing and releasing, and I just thought that was going to be perfect for Clemmie too.
Yes, I love that. We've discussed a little bit about your process and how you write. Is there one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring author, someone who's thinking that they've got a book in them but haven't managed to get it out yet? What would you suggest?
I think the most important thing is getting over that hurdle of making a start.
Yes.
We probably all done it. We talked for years about, I want to be a published author. I want to see my book on the supermarket shelf next to whoever, but haven't actually had the courage to get on and do it. And this is what I was saying earlier about, in the beginning, it's just for you.
Yes.
It's just for you. So always carry a notebook and pen. This is what I used to do when I first started writing. In fact, I think I wrote 4 books in this way. I used to write for an hour before the children got up to go to school. And then I would sit in my car during my lunch break, because so often we hear, I haven't got enough time to do it. And until you start to prioritise the time and ring fence those little snatches of time, there's never a right time to do it, is there? So I think get on with it. That's my first piece of advice. And secondly, set aside the time for it, even if it is just a few minutes.
That's how I started writing. I was working full time, and then I took a job that was a little bit less demanding than the one I'd done before. I wasn't working quite such long hours. And I just put an hour in my Outlook calendar as if it was a meeting at the end of the day when I'd finished working. And I would sit and write then. And that's how I got my first book written. And then I wrote my subsequent ones on maternity leave with my kids before I eventually thought, actually, you know what, I'm going to go for it and do this full time. And I don't think I'm actually very much more productive now I'm writing full time than when I was squeezing it. Than when I certainly don't write 2 novels a year like you do. That's amazing. Now, what are you working on now? What do we have to look forward to? What's coming up next?
So I am working on the novel that will come out next April called Walking on Sunshine. This is my tricky edit. I have kindly reached the point today where I'm thinking, do you know what, actually? Yeah. So, I feel like we've turned a corner. We've turned a corner. I think this has been a tricky write because it's a brand new setting and because potentially it could be the first book in a new series. When I've written other standalones, I've known that it's going to be a one shot. I've known that that's where we're going for that book and there will not be a return trip. But with this one, it's potentially the first in a series set in the Suffolk countryside in and around a small village called Willowwell. Willowwell Woods feature a beautiful Georgian house called Fernside, also features. And it's all that world building that you have to do whether you're writing a standalone or a first in a series. You're you are creating everything from scratch. And that takes a long time.
Thanks for that. You've left us wanting more. That's perfect.
Good.
So thank you so much, Heidi. And thank you to you for listening. So if you've enjoyed Ray of Light, please do like and subscribe for more. You can find me at Eleanor Ray Books across Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X and YouTube. And I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you've liked what you've heard, you might just like my novels too. I write uplifting book club fiction that finds light in the darkness and hope in the unexpected. My newest novel is called See the Stars, about a woman who finds solace in the skies when her life doesn't go to plan. So thank you again, Heidi, and I'll see you all next time for more tips on writing, reading, and happiness.